Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 22. Azric paced the gleaming polished floors of his rooms. His rooms were nestled near the upper floors of his keep, which dominated the center of the city of Calyapos. The city was on the distant edge of the continent, as far as one could travel from the seat of power in the great cloud city of Kaibar. Lord Azric had been the eldest of 3 children, and had taken rule from his father when he had passed earlier in the year to an unknown sickness. His family had been careful to quench the rumors and stamp them out as best they could. They had put a high bounty on any informants foolish enough to try to sell the information. Their family's enemies could not see them show weakness. Lord Azric had miscalculated in court, and had retreated here in an attempt to stave off any potential backlash for his error. In the high courts, held in the 9-ringed cities that stretched across the continent, showing weakness was even more dangerous. Political retaliation was swift and without mercy. Fortunes could change upon a single comment, uttered mistakenly to the wrong party. His political enemies, or those of his more powerful allies, would sense the scent of weakness as a bloodhound on the hunt might. He was practiced enough to expect retaliation, possibly even an assassination attempt. But from who? Which party could he trust? His mind spun, thinking of the possibilities and alliances that he had carefully crafted over the past 10 years of intrigue, suckling at the teat of power at the heart of Kaibar. The military alliance he had built over years of work with Sir Edmund Dosan, who now stood captain of the realm's western armies, or maybe the plotting Mistral family, with their host of heirs and heiresses to a massive fortune of land and labor. The trick had always been to look to who gained the most. His father had chided him when he was a young lordling. Dozens of merchant contracts spread out like a massive spiderweb in his mind. He thought of his promise to pay for millet from the far coast. He had levied taxes for a second time to secure that precious contract from the merchant house Merint in the spring. If he were to fall, or be crippled economically, his mind spun frantically, trying to decipher which merchant house could benefit the most from his demise. Kalian, the mad gambler, his childhood friend, had warned him constantly of never trusting other nobles. His words rang like tolling bells in his mind now. Sweat slicked his brow. He leveled an unwary gaze at the servants bustling about in his house, carrying finery or moving from one room to the next to clean. Any one of them could be an assassin. He had long taken for granted the fact that there were spies among his host of servants. Even here, so far removed from anything, he knew this to be all but certain truth. His rich clothing felt heavy, itching. He needed to find the enemy and silence him. Then perhaps, after a year, maybe 3 at most, he could return to Kaibar. Not before. How it boiled his blood to lose this precious time. Those lucrative contracts would not wait for him, however. But better to be alive and all the poorer than the alternative. He had exacted punishment in the city square from suspected spies he had placed as bait, hoping to frighten real spies into traveling away from the city. He had already set his spy masters busily at work plying their craft, and had sent secret emissaries to each of the 9-ring cities to act as his eyes and ears. Should his poor position become past news to the courts, he could reach out feelers to prior contacts of his. He had no one he could truly trust, however. Where was Kalian when he needed him most? No doubt off carousing, seeking excitement in one of the free cities beyond the great desert. He needed his counsel more than ever now. In all his years governing, he knew bitterly that loyalty could never truly be bought. It had to be earned. How he hated that tired phrase, and yet it was simple truth. Moving down the mirrored hallways, gilt embossing, delicate statues of gold and jade, chased in silver, he continued to think. There must be an answer. For now, however, he would make an example of some poor wretch. That would give him a temporary reprieve to think before an assassin could strike. He would have time, wouldn't he?